This is going to be every episode now, isn't it? Every episode. Welcome to episode 65 of the ADHD Adults podcast, one of our ridiculous Extra Thursday episodes where we'll talk about the week in ADHD. This continued doomed to fail experiment of adding extra nonsense to your lives now obviously includes me, James Brown, who is painfully joined by Alex Connor and Mrs ADHD.
Hey, good to meet you.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. First time I heard it too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Carry on. You can cut that.
I would, but there's a script and it's Alex's bit next, so I'm waiting
okay.
for him to
Sorry.
read it or say something.
I thought we'd given up the Thursday episodes because you balls it up last week.
Well done, yeah, good one. Well done. Fabulous. So yes, obviously, let's move on.
Right, just a reminder that we do these extra podcasts for educational reasons. That was the idea originally, but people asked for more reflections and more bonus content. So now we have time to do an extra one because it says insult James and read that out here because I've forgotten to write this bit. Haven't I? Again, I'll make something up. It'll be fine. We've got extra time for one because James is dealing with an extremely serious and difficult personal situation, which is embarrassing for him.
Good one, Al. Anyway, thank you for that. So this sex toy purchase from Wish, which turns out very different to what you expected when you were drunk of a podcast, is also a tragedy in 3 parts. We'll discuss how the week between podcasts has been for us, from our perspective as people with ADHD and as people involved in the community. We'll answer some questions from our ADHD community. Remember to send them in on the socials or on the Discord forum. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this week's podcast theme. And Mrs. ADHD will continue her amazing story about what happened when a company she worked for did a midnight flit. So, how was your week? Who's going to go first? Sam, how was your week?
I can't remember. Sorry.
Okay, it's good. Let's move on to Alex. How was your week?
I've been struggling a bit this week. It's not funny, is it?
Tell us about that.
I mean, I don't think there's anything to tell, really. Just yeah.
Do go on.
No, you do go on. I sometimes just think ADHD is a big old piece of shit, and I have felt bad about myself. I've been not feeling very well, feeling like I can't do anything, feeling like I'm going to lose my job, even though I'm getting good feedback. Just generally a bit of shit, and I don't know why. Don't know, James. Fucking shit. What about you?
Obviously, again, still looking after Robert from Kidderminster, and that's not a great situation to be in for him, let alone for me. And we did burnout a few weeks ago. I've really discovered what burnout is on Friday because I've been doing the talks. The talks that I've been doing, talks, which have my name on the slides, which Alex has obviously managed to fucking shoehorn his way into.
Like I do on this podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's public opinion, Sam. And remember, you don't trust the public to vote on anything because that's how Brexit happened. But the talks, which I've been doing, which have my name on, include traveling up to Liverpool, to Leeds, to Bristol. So trying to fit in being over at mum and dad's and staying there at least every other night and most days, occasionally popping home to see Mrs. ADHD, traveling to these talks. On Friday, when we got back from Bristol, I had 5 meetings and I just sat on the sofa. I couldn't be asked to go in the office. And because it was a nice, comfy sofa, after 5 hours of meetings, when I stopped, I couldn't move. It wasn't ADHD paralysis. It was utter sheer exhaustion. And I've also been told I've got pre-diabetes. So not the best week, to be honest. And that comes from the last 3 months. I've been completely sedentary. I've been either driving to the hospital, sitting at the hospital with dad, driving to mum and dad's, sitting down at mum and dad's. I haven't exercised. My emotional coping strategy is eat all the shit, all the chocolate, the crisps, the cake, the biscuits. And therefore, I am at risk of type 2 diabetes. So it's a brilliant week.
Oh, you made me feel a lot better. Thank you.
I'm glad. The next question is, and I can't wait for Mrs. ADHD's answer on this. What stupid thing have you been doing instead of what you were supposed to be doing this week? So
wait, why? Why are you reading out all the questions, even the ones written in blue, like the first one? That's what I want to know. This happened last time.
It did. It's just because I'm trying to keep things moving forward. Because you two, we've talked about Discord being a chaotic squirrel rave. This
Right.
is pretty much that distilled down into 3 people. So if I don't do these things, there's a 30-second pause while one of you isn't looking at the script. So that's why I'm trying to take control of things to make sure this is actually a podcast and not silence for 30 minutes, which some people might prefer. Anyway, Alex, what stupid thing have you been doing this week instead of what you were supposed to be doing?
Yeah, well, one of the things is I really had a lot of work to do this week, and I did try and do most of it. As you well know, I forgot to write some of the script, for example.
Yeah.
But I didn't forget, just didn't do it. Knew I was supposed to, didn't do it. What I did do, however, is go on the famous tax dodging wanker site on the internet and buy like full-size big original movie posters from the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, and a bunch of frames, and filled them full and put them.
Not book covers, because you don't watch films. You're not aware of cinema, are you, Alex, as a concept? Did you like the colours?
I did like the colours. Yeah, no, they're purely Googles, James, baubles, if you will.
But based on books you've read.
No, it's classic ones, really. The ones that you like. I reckon if I said name the top 5, you'd know exactly which ones they were.
Yeah, but I can't be asked to.
Yeah, no, framing Jaws and Pulp Fiction and Star Wars and so on, and putting them in my in my spare room, in a spare room in my house. Doesn't matter what room, not relevant.
I'm going to save Sam's. Thank you for that, by the way. I'm going to save Sam's for last because I just think it's brilliant. So my stupid thing I've been doing instead of what I'm supposed to be doing is actually speaking to journalists about ADHD. So we all know that there have been a couple of really unhelpful articles published by The Guardian. I think it was The Times just this week, which we need to do a video about because it really diminished women's experience in ADHD. And somebody from the Mail Online, Oliver, got in touch. And I don't want to disclose information, but it's very clear he wants to write a positive piece, I think. It started off about kind of statistics, but then moved into a very long conversation about social media, about the NHS, about ADHD in general. So I'm really hoping that's going to turn into a positive piece. And I find this
it's the
hilarious.
Worst newspaper in the
it is
the worst.
But they have so much reach. So if it's a positive piece, the reach they've got is huge. So rather than a smaller outlet writing a piece of shit, if this can be written as a positive piece that actually embraces the problems we have, then that's really important. This is so funny, I think. Alex lives in Germany, as I'm sure you're aware, but a German television company has got in touch with me asking if I want to do a television program on ADHD. So I spent a good while on Friday talking to Clara from Spiegel TV, and then we've had some follow-up emails, and they're going to come over and film possibly in the early year, possibly at one of the shows, and also possibly at home. But yeah, I'm not in Germany. It'd be much easier for them to just film Alex, but obviously they chose not to.
Wanker, that's why.
Blue tick wanker. So that's what I've been doing, is talking to journalists. Sam, I've been waiting for this. This is brilliant, Alex. You're going to love it.
Yeah. So James came back last night for the first time in days.
Yeah, just to correct you, James came back yesterday afternoon, not last night.
For the first time in days. And so obviously it'd be nice if we spent time together, but instead I organised for my friend to come round so that I could do his hair. I was doing that for a couple of hours. Then I'd had like a mount for my monitors on my desk arrive. So obviously I put all that together and arranged the monitors on my desk and spent a couple of hours doing that. Then this jumpsuit, which I'd got at a bargain price, I didn't like the colour of it. So I decided to dye it. You literally have to stir the thing for an hour while you boil wash it and dye, while James just sat there waiting for me to finish. Then I nipped upstairs to get a cuddly jumper and just started doing some work because I forgot he was here. And normally I do work until quite late at night. So yeah, he wasn't very pleased at all. Sorry.
I mean, I came over
I
at
dyed my thing. Oh, no, you can't see. I've already established that. I dyed my hands grey.
I got home at 1:30. Really looking forward to spending some time with Mrs ADHD, and it was nearly 6:30 by the time she really spoke to me, to be honest. So I sat there, I had a bath, but other than that, I sat there for 5 hours just waiting for her to actually realize that she was with me. And she came and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've just been hyper focused. And it is one of those things when you talk about relationship issues, we don't often kind of focus on the fact that you can be in the same house with someone and just be so hyper focused on other stuff, you forget they're there. It's a big issue because I obviously felt shit. And I did say to Mrs ADHD, kind of jokingly, when she was just about to come and spend time, we said, I'm just going to pop back over to Mum and Dad's if that's okay. And then she went, oh God, I'm so sorry.
And then I went and worked upstairs for a bit.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
I would,
good
though,
one.
if I had to live with James.
Yeah. Is that the end of part 1? I get confused.
I don't know.
I think
also, I went to bed early the other night because I felt really ill and just thought I need to just do nothing, and then spent hours on Discord chatting to people until I had to put my phone down because I felt so sick from looking at it.
Don't take your phone to bed. I know we're not doing sleep in this one, but don't take your phone to bed. Awful.
You also stayed awake all last night crying, didn't you, Sam?
I did,
about how wonderful I am.
Yeah.
To spend time with, obviously, just in principle.
Yeah. The idea of me is wonderful. The reality of me is very ignorable, apparently.
Yeah.
Right, I genuinely do think that's the end of part 1. So we'll take a quick
good.
break and we'll come back in part 2 to answer some questions from the ADHD community. See you in part 2. Alex, hi.
Aight. What's up? Hello, Governor.
Welcome back to episode 65 of the ADHD Adult. 12th episode. That's a special Thursday one. This is part 2 where we talk about questions from the community. And the way we get them at the moment mostly is from our Discord, and Discord is something to do with the internet, I'm reliably informed. What I do know is that we've got over the magic 1,000 number on Discord, James, haven't we, something? And that means people can search for the ADHD adults and actually find it rather than searching into the void. So please come and join and chat. And if you're too anxious, like loads of people are, to say anything, start just on one little chat and say, hello, everyone. We have an introductions thing. No one's going to, you don't have to read anything back. No one's going to shout it. You can just say hello. And that's enough. So, James, we have a channel on the Discord, as you know, that says questions from the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written one of them down. The first one is from Saz, who we actually met, the three of us, last week in real meat space. That sounds rude. And Saz, hello, says, ADHD adult, Alex and ADHD adult James. Talk tonight in Bristol was really brilliant, which tells you when it was, because it was last week. Really interesting and funny. Alex, thanks for chatting to Redacted and me in the break. It was lovely to meet you. I thought of a question afterwards. Do you think a brain scan will ever be part of the diagnosis for ADHD, or would it be just too expensive or clinically impossible? I'm going to go straight to Sam. That's funny for two reasons. One, because you don't know, obviously, but two, because you weren't listening. There could be anything.
I'm going to say yes.
Yes. James, Sam says yes.
I agree it will eventually. I agree that eventually, if you look at the technology that we've got, you can measure the electrical activity of the brain using what's called an EEG. You can measure using an MRI, the structure of the brain, and using a functional MRI, you can look at the connectivity and the metabolism and how the brain is working. And they're all incredible things which have been developed apart from the EEG really over the last 10 to 20 years. In 10 to 20 years time, I believe either using kind of radioactive isotopes or tracers or markers that will identify which parts of the brain are working in a certain way, there will be an objective test for ADHD at some point, but we're a very long way away from it.
It's a really interesting one. I think there will as well. I've tried to get biomarkers of ADHD as part of my old life as a proper scientist. And it's for exactly what you said, James, notoriously difficult. I think a big question is this size thing. Is size important? No.
No, it is.
Thanks, Sam. Can I just point out? Obviously, you're meant to be 8 to 10 inches from your microphone, but clearly after being with me for 12 years, you don't know what 8 to 10 inches is.
Is that better?
Actually,
I'm just
is
really
like
pleased
it,
because I was right.
About
that's
saying
true. Yeah,
yes.
you got it
Well-
right.
I
well
was,
done,
yeah.
So-
well
yeah.
done.
People say, why don't we just measure the size of people's ADHD brains and say, well, that's 5% smaller, so you can see it's got ADHD. The problem is the variation in the system. One is that it's not clear if that the size of ADHD brains is different in adults. The jury's still a little bit out on that. It seems to be in children, but the thing is that the variation of human brains is more than 5%. So it's a bit like saying you measure all the cities in England and all the cities in Wales and their sizes, and on average, English cities might be bigger. But you couldn't look at you couldn't say, well, that city's 100,000, so it must be in Wales. It doesn't make sense. It could be Lichfield or something. So you can't do it because the variation in the system is more than the difference you see. So we're not ready yet. We have to do what James said. Seems massively unlikely, and go a bit more into the sort of anatomical and functional scans. But again, right now, there's too much wobble in the system. It's a really good question, wasn't it? Cheers for that.
It was, yeah, it was.
Saz. Go on.
Are you reading them all out, or are we taking turns? I mean, I don't care.
They're in blue, so let me fucking do it. My God,
Okay.
you're a control freak.
Jesus. Yeah.
I'm not very well. The next question, I don't know how to pronounce this, is from Lifu, and it
Yeah.
says, "What is domestic anxiety?" I should just Google it, shouldn't I? Sorry. No, you can't Google it. Sam.
Yeah.
Well, domestic anxiety is it's a term that Alex actually invented, and it's a unique type of anxiety that we ADHDers get when we're just stuck at home with nothing to do and we just can't cope with it. Is that all right, Al?
That's pretty good, wasn't it?
I know,
I'm annoyed. My
I
joke's
know.
ruined.
I knew you would be.
James, you know full well that I put this one because on Discord, when you ever log in, you'll see that someone replied, "It's a term that James and Alex invented." And I actually did log in and reply. It was just Alex.
Yeah. It's a bit like it just says my name on the slides of the talks we're doing, isn't it? Yeah. No, but
One of my
you've got-
friends asked me
Go on.
this week, texted me and said, I see you were at James's talk in Bristol. Are you going to be at the one in Birmingham? Because it'd be nice to get a beer. Thanks, James.
Yeah. But that's true, though.
It is true. I'm gonna be-
Getting back to domestic anxiety, that's a pretty good description. We would call it a temporal or transient form of anxiety that when you get to a point in the day where you kind of cognitively accept activities are over, now it's time to rest. For me, within 5 minutes, my brain just screams, do something. What are you doing? You've got to do something. It's that being driven by a motor thing, which the only way that many of us can turn it off is to use a substance or find an activity which is much healthier that allows your brain to think, okay, either dampen it down or to think that it is doing something.
I asked a friend who's not drinking at the moment. I said, what do you do for that domestic anxiety? You get, because we all want to spend time with our families and we love them and I enjoy spending time, but my brain's a shit. It's going, no. So, and he's not drinking at the moment. I said, so what do you do instead to fill that time? And he went, I gamble. Jesus. No.
Oh my
Amazing.
God.
I mean, there's no, there's no,
Yeah,
Never
probably.
leaked anything out before.
Oh dear. Anyway, last question.
Yeah, they
Al.
weren't on the
Right.
same part. Sorry.
No.
The last one we've got the last one we've got is from
I was
Catch
going to
That
say
Thought on
worse
Discord.
than that, actually. So you're lucky. Carry on.
The last one is from Catch That Thought, and they ask, James, they ask, James is very correct about sausages and red sauce versus HP sauce. Alex, HP sauce is vinegary weirdness to me, although I strangely don't mind the fruity version. Tomato sauce is clearly superior overall. There's no question here, James. Have you changed the script? Or did I not pay attention? That seems unlikely.
I know. I just think the righteousness of that statement that HP sauce is shit and ketchup is far superior managed to
It
somehow
deserves to
force
be in.
itself. It did deserve to be in because anyone that eats HP sauce needs correcting.
This needs bleeping out more than the thing Sam said.
I'm not sure
That is
that's possible.
shocking. It's the best.
How is it shocking?
source.
How is it shocking?
I hate you.
Well, we all know that, but
Wow.
come on, defend your
Not because of the
position,
source thing.
Connor.
The two
Yeah,
are unrelated.
well, obviously, defend your position, Connor. What's good about HP Source?
Culturally relevant.
Oh,
Ketchup's American,
Amazing.
probably. I have no evidence for that.
I think catsup was what they used to call it, wasn't they, when they first invented it? Anyway, on that brilliant HP Source's shit note, we'll take a break and we'll come back in part 3 for thoughts on this week's theme of ADHD and the workplace. See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
I knew she'd do it. Yeah. Long trumpet. Thank you. Welcome back to part 3 of episode 65 of the ADHD Adults podcast, one of our ridiculous The Week in ADHD extra episodes. What we're going to do is talk a little bit more about the theme of ADHD in the workplace. So we've got to start with Sam because she's got to continue this story about starting a job with a company that wasn't a company. And then we got to the point where the owner of the office block said they've done a midnight flip, darling. What happened next, Sam?
Yeah, and obviously I was upset because I'd given up an actual job for this and hadn't been paid. And he was like, listen, darling, why don't you just come and work for me in the office? And I was like, but you don't need anybody working for you. He was like, no, it'll be great. So basically, he paid me, at the time, this was a really good wage for me, like 200 quid a week cash in hand. I didn't have a car because I'd written mine off. So he gave me the window van, which was used to transport windows around. And I basically used to sit there all day playing solitaire in the office. And he'd come in every morning and he'd buy me a McDonald's breakfast. And I'd say, I said his name then. I'm not really doing anything here. You sure you could? And he's going, no, you are. You're building me up. Just having you here is really good. So then I decided I wanted to do more. So I got him to take me out on a job and teach me how to price up windows, and then went out on my own and came back. And I was like, they want windows and doors everywhere. And he was like, that is amazing. Well done. Let me see the quote. And he went, we're going to lose money on this job, Sam, because you haven't quoted them the right prices. And I was like, I'll go back and tell them. And he went, no, they've signed a contract now, so we've got to supply them at those prices. I was like, I'm so sorry. Then one day now I realize I've got ADHD. All of this makes sense. One day I was driving the guy that fitted the windows because he'd lost his license. And I got a van full of windows and it was a massive van. I'm driving along like this and I was chatting to him, talking away. I hope you're not watching this. Talking away to him, didn't see that I'd veered onto the other side of the road. So went like that to take me off the underside of the road and basically drove into somebody's front garden, went through their wall. She, a little old woman, was doing her dishes as I'm coming toward her in the van. I managed to stop just before I hit her house. But obviously we got out and I apologized and my boss came over and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we had to go to court and everything. And we got home and Bob said, can you find the insurance document? And I said, I'm not insured on this vehicle. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, you've got to be 23 or over and I'm only 21. And he was like, what? Anyway, I then left him to move down south, and he was gutted. This man was wonderful to me, and I just completely ruined everything I touched for him. So yeah,
we can all see the underlying. Like it's like blatantly obvious what was going on there, and only Sam doesn't seem to know.
Yeah, I know.
Not even to spell it out, are you?
I've said it to you before, Sam.
No,
you know, a nice older man, but I know.
Not at all. He was not improper at all. He was lovely.
But he would have been.
Just
He would have
felt
been
sorry for me. He wouldn't have been.
Right.
No.
Alex.
I don't even know. Same. No, there's the reason we chose it is because it's a massive, massive, massive issue for so many people with ADHD. Jobs are a killer because we're not grown-ups. No, we are. You know, we're not the same, and we can't do those sorts of things, and it's awful. But what one thing I forgot, I think, or I didn't really make clear, is that you're not a fucking parasite when you're even asking for a job. Your job there is to see if you're a good fit together. If they're a good fit for you, like Sam said, check. If you're a good fit for them, you're an asset to joining and being part of a team. Even if they've got hierarchy, they're your boss. You're an asset, not a parasite. And you're seeing if it's a good fit for you and a healthy fit for them. And the thing James said on Monday about your CV and saying this is what you're good at is perfect. The one thing you've got to add always is evidence. And that doesn't have to be, it's not that hard to get the evidence. You can, for example, if you say, oh, I am loyal, when have you been loyal? What did you do? What was the outcome? One sentence, all you need.
And they usually
Always.
ask for that, don't they?
Yeah,
They
and
do.
that's why.
Yeah, but we're not going to know. You're in an interview situation, you will not remember. So you're going to have to think about it in advance, write it down in advance.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because they ask me a question on the spot and I'll go, oh, no, I've never been a doctor, you know, I've never taught medicine. I don't know, even though that's my job. I just forget stuff, obviously. Or I talk about something else. What about you, Jim Bob McJim?
I had to fight the urge because you said the word fit so many times. Fight the urge to tell the story about Sam and fitting something in, which Alex was there for, if you remember, at the V Festival, Alex. And look at Sam's face. Yeah.
Filth.
Anyway, yes, it is Phil. So I obviously I told you the story about leaving a job because somebody was better at putting a table away than me. There are a couple of things that I thought about since then. So when I finished my degree and couldn't get a PhD because I'd done my degree at Wolverhampton, and not a lot of universities took that place seriously, the first thing I thought was, I'll become a drug rep, go into pharma. And I had an interview, which was, according to the guy interviewing me, the worst interview that he'd ever done.
Wow, he told you that?
Yeah, he did. And in a very, very angry and irritated way, because I'd clearly wasted his time. But I got one question, not well, as you know. I got one question right. I'd got everything wrong, and you could see this guy getting more and more red faced. I hadn't prepared for the interview. I didn't know what a drug rep needs to be good at. I didn't know which of my strengths, which there weren't many, would apply to being a drug rep. And it was this brilliant moment where he said, frustratedly, "Sell me this pen," and I went, just randomly, "What pen do you use?" And he looked up and he slammed the pen down and said, "How did you get that right?" And I went, "What?" He said, You've got every question in this interview wrong. How did you get that one right?" And I just went, "I don't know." And that's when he told me it was the worst interview he'd ever done.
Wow, professional.
After that, I did the thing that most people with a degree in science do when they don't know what job to do. I thought, I'll do teacher training. And because it was, again, late on, because I'd spent the summer trying to work out what I wanted to do, trying to get PhD, so I didn't have much time. So I went up to Liverpool John Moores University to start teacher training, and my God, I was, again, just not ready for it. I was placed, because I was big, Alex and Sam, I was placed in the roughest school in Toxteth. That was the basis for them putting me in that school.
You were
because I was
by size?
No, not everybody, Sam. It's just because it was a school with a very bad reputation. They didn't want to put somebody smaller. They wanted to put a big lad in that school because they thought I would be safer. And obviously, it wasn't a very pleasant.
Everyone go to Eton, it's just entirely staffed by Oompa Loompas.
Well, it is, isn't it? Yeah, and I every element of that, I was so unhappy. I was so unhappy with the thought I'm going to be a teacher. I was so unhappy with all of it. But I pushed forward until magically I got an email saying we want you to do a PhD, and I grabbed hold of that opportunity like you wouldn't believe, because I was just so I would have gone down a path that would have I wouldn't have done it.
I just ask if anybody knows what the sound of a nail file is when you have it right next to you.
Oh, God. I didn't even realise I was doing that. I'm sorry. I'll do it lower.
Or
not. Yeah, that's not
at all.
I know, but my nails are really irritating me. I've got tag ends or whatever you call them.
Fair enough.
Snaggle nail.
Anyway, on that incredibly professional note.
That reminded me of something, actually. I once went for a job as an air traffic controller, not knowing anything about it at all. I just thought, I worked for Virgin and thought, I wouldn't mind being an air traffic controller. Somehow managed to get the interview.
Sam,
what the fuck?
I have to say hats off to you, because by not having that job, you've saved many lives.
Latitude, what?
I just nearly made a joke that would have been much, much worse than Sam's.
No, really? Brilliant.
Well done for exhibiting.
Stopping yourself. I stopped myself from making a really bad joke on Discord the other night. Sorry, carry on, James.
No, we were just saying the same thing. You just said it louder. It's okay.
Oh,
That was episode 65 of the ADHD Adults, another poorly advised and delivered Thursday episode, following on from Monday's episode on ADHD in the
somebody at the
workplace.
door.
Okay, do you want to go and get that?
Yeah, see you in a bit.
See ya. Amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing having her on the podcast.
People honestly don't think it's real, do they?
And I think we should do a kind of fly on the wall documentary of what it's like to live with Mrs ADHD, because this for me is, when she pays attention to me, which she didn't yet like yesterday, is almost 24 hours a day. Oh, she's back. For the last 10
Bye
seconds.
all.
So if you,
See ya.
if you like this nonsense and want to get involved, contact us on the socials, Discord, and everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Trigger warning klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon, 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 klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon.